would like to introduce our guest. She's here working on a special event today. Please tell us your name and all that you're doing today on this wonderful historic moment celebrating the incredible contributions of women in Maryland.
Sure. I'm Dr. Amy Rosencrantz. I'm the secretary for the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and the lead researcher on the memories of the Baltimore Women's Industrial Exchange.
Interesting.
So we've been doing this wonderful project for the past 2 years called the Memories of the Baltimore Women's Industrial Exchange. And the Women's Heritage Center moved here into this building, which was the Women's Industrial Exchange. So when we moved into this building to create our center with our different exhibits, we noticed an entire room full of artifacts about the Women's Industrial Exchange. And being a historian, I'm like,
That's priceless.
Right? What is all this stuff? And I started researching, and there was no comprehensive history of the Women's Industrial Exchange.
Isn't that hard to imagine?
Yes.
Because there is so much history in this room, from the time they filmed feature films in the restaurant to all the VIPs and celebrities who used to dine here. No matter when you stopped in, there were always exciting people dining with you.
Yeah, so what we were able to do was receive a grant from Baltimore Heritage, and over the past 2 years I've worked with interns from the Notre Dame of Maryland University to document the history of the Women's Industrial Exchange.
Remember anything special about your meal when you dined that day?
Honestly, no. I think that what's most interesting is in the history of what we've done is the history of the iconic dishes that were served here.
True.
So
they were very unique.
Yes. So
I personally love their soups. But.
Yeah, and that as we mentioned before, you're the first person that's talked about the soups. In all the oral histories and all the research that we've done, we've heard about the chicken salad, we've heard about the aspic,
yes.
We've heard about the desserts like the cupcakes and the lemon meringue pie,
right.
But no one had talked about the soups, so that's very interesting to me.
Well, I would come for soup, and normally I'd always leave room for dessert.
Because
their desserts were very good.
That's what we've been told. So when we did some interviews of one of the former waitresses, she said that things like lemon meringue pie would go so quick that that
you
people
get it
would
before
call.
noon, you might as well give up.
Well, yeah, that's what she said. So she said that sometimes people would call in the morning and say, "Do you have lemon meringue pie?" And if they said yes, then they would reserve their piece of pie right then and there. So if you didn't reserve or come in early, you didn't get it.
That's so true. Iron Place women could dine at one time, which you think is rather odd, right? But back then it was just acceptable. Women only had one restaurant option. How do you feel that affected the daily life of women at the time?
So we did, and in our research, we did notice that there were several different tea rooms where women could dine. So we weren't the only place, but it was considered an iconic place, a place that people wanted to come.
Right.
Because not only did we have the restaurant, we had the consignment shop in the front.
Oh,
which
yes.
we're sitting in the area that was the consignment shop. But what I think is so unique about the Women's Industrial Exchange when we talk about women's history is that it afforded women the opportunity to make a living. So this area that we're in right now was the consignment shop, and that's the reason that the Women's Industrial Exchange started. It started because women after the Civil War needed a way to make a living. And it wasn't acceptable for them to go out to work. So instead, they did the things like canning fruits and making jellies and doing the embroidery and the fine needlework and selling those things. That was acceptable for women of a certain social class to do at the time. So they were able to become consigners to this shop. And what we have been able to find is research where some women were receiving enough income to support their families from selling their goods here in the shop.
That's very exciting to know that.
Yeah. The other thing, not to interrupt you,
sorry.
Was that it was women who managed the shop and women who managed the restaurant and women who managed the building. So very rarely were women during the early 1900s managing establishments.
Oh, that is so true.
They managed this establishment here. So
they kept it going for a very long time.
For over 100 years, yeah.
Which is very exciting just to think about that as such a success.
Mm-hmm. In the oral histories that we've done, in the research we've done, we have not uncovered that.
Okay. I think
so. If you want to do an oral history with us to tell us that, then we can put that in. But from the people that we've talked to, we haven't.
Okay, so that's what Jerry and I remember coming down here is the feeling that this is the only place women had any real freedom. But I don't want all this on my this is not going to all be in there.
Right.
Are you still taping?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, because we might get something really good there.
No, and then you cut and paste, that's fine. So what I've
Say-
really loved about this project is that we've been able to use interns from Notre Dame of Maryland University to do a lot of the research. So that's
wonderful.
empowering.
Multi-generations.
Yes.
Bringing in this new wonderful aspect to the young people about all the great part of history that's right here in Baltimore at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center.
For sure.
Which is very exciting because I know when I was here dining, you had a sense of history was alive because you were living the history that all those other women before you had come to dine here. And like I said, I brought my clients here, especially the women clients, because it was like we could step back in time and still be a part of a very important movement.
Yeah.
Because those women were the leaders that brought us to where we are today.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, Amy, when can women come down here, as well as men and
Yeah,
children? We're
so
not leaving out
the
that.
Maryland Women's Heritage Center is open upon request. So you just need to message the Maryland Women's Heritage Center on our website, and you can make an appointment to come and visit anytime you want.
Really, that's interesting. I'm working on a political show right now, and I'd love to have some of my ladies come
Oh,
down.
please bring them. We'd love to have them.
Wonderful. Is there any last words that you'd like to add today?
I just want to say that the Baltimore Women's Industrial Exchange is an important icon in Baltimore's history. Not just Baltimore women's history, but Baltimore's history.
Yes.
And the research that we've been able to do to uncover who those people were that were involved is going to be essential to adding to the history of Baltimore. And as we like to say here at the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, we're adding her story to his story to have our story.
Exactly. Amy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Around Baltimore, you absolutely must stop here at the Women's Industrial Kitchen. We are a Baltimore institution. How many of you, before I tell you a little spiel about who we are and what we do, how many of you, show of hands, have been here at the Exchange before? A fair number. All right. How many of you have been a volunteer or a board member at the Exchange before? I always like to ask that question because amazingly, not amazingly, but there are many times people sprinkle that I've never met, and I want to make sure that I meet and hear a little bit about your experience with the Exchange. So I'm just going to, while you're eating, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes and tell you a little bit about our history, and welcome questions that you have, and just I'm going to invite you to stay, enjoy, until I get you on the bus. We've got a time limit. But also, please come back and visit. We just love to be a hostess.
Tell us who you are again.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Sometimes I forget myself. So my name is Stephanie Halley. I am the executive director of the Women's Industrial Exchange. And on behalf of our team of folks who work here in the shop, of Irene and her staff who head up the kitchen, and our board of directors, and the many folks who support us, we welcome you. So just a little bit about our history. We've been around for a while. 1880, in fact. We've been around since 1880. I challenge you to find another nonprofit that's been around that long. There aren't very many of them, I can tell you. Not that many can last quite that long, but we're a strong lady. We are a strong lady. So in 1880, it was shortly after the Civil War. Men either had not come home from war, or they came home missing limbs, much less able to provide, brain injuries, and they were having trouble putting food on the table. So the women in our city looked around and said, what are we going to do? How are we going to make ends meet? How am I going to feed my children? How am I going to pay this mortgage? How am I going to get by? And they did not have, as you may have heard, they did not have the type of opportunities that we have today. Today, I can start my own business. Today, I can go out and get one of many different types of jobs. But then, that just wasn't the case. And so they looked around and they were trying to come up with an idea, and a woman by the name of Mrs. Harmon Brown gathered about 20 women in her home. And she said, you know what? You do really good crocheting. And you are an excellent quilter. And your preserves, everybody loves your preserves that you make. And so what we're going to do is we're going to sell them. This thing that we do, right, these skills that we have, we're going to use them and we're going to make money with them to feed our families. And out of those 20 women, 15 people said, nope, that's illegal. We're not allowed to do that in this day and age. And they walked out the door. And five women standing said, desperate times, desperate measures. We're going to do this anyway. So Mrs. Harmon Brown said, we're going to use my house. We're going to do it secretly. I'm not going to tell anybody whose things they are that I'm selling. So she was protecting everybody else, and she took on that risk. And they started selling out of her kind of Tupperware life, right? They started selling out of her living room. And before you knew it, it was boom. People were flocking to get the things that she was selling because they were good. Because we make good things, don't we? And they were, and other women started to flock to her and say, you know what? Maybe you should sell my things. maybe now I'll try it. And so people were flocking to her home, and soon it got too big for her living room. And with very shortly, right around the corner, Saratoga and Holiday Streets, they opened a shop. They opened a storefront. And people came, and more people came. And by the end of the 1887, they moved into this building. They opened a shop in the building. And by the end of the decade, they started in 1880, and by the end of the decade, in 1889, they bought this building. Those women made enough things, gathered enough funds to purchase this very building. How wonderful. How wonderful. And so, that was the beginning, right?
So this project was really fun to work on because we were asked by our honors program director at Notre Dame, Maryland University, if we could work on this with Dr. Rosencrantz. She was looking for 2 interns, and so it was perfect because, like Anna said, we're history majors. So we started with the basic research of the people who worked here, what the Women's Industrial Exchange was, when it was open, and why it was opened. And so then we were able to go deeper into who the people were and their stories. We found stories about like family members who worked here, which was really cool, and then we got to meet some of them. So we kept adding to the project, and then the website is a way to show all the work that we've done. So it's been kind of a non-stop thing, but really exciting because there's always something new to look at.
So we're both history majors, so that's been another great thing to have the opportunity to work with Dr. Rosencrantz, because we got to go through all the primary source documents that were here and then do preliminary research on a new topic. So that was really good for our own personal majors too, to get that experience.
So what was your favorite part?
My favorite part was probably interviewing the different women who either worked here or dined here, just because we could bring the history alive a little bit. They had really interesting little stories to tell. A lot of times when you're doing the research, it's a lot of the boring and like financial history, so when you get to do the interviews, it's really fun and exciting, and you really get to see what it was like and what the community was like too.
How about you?
I really like that part too. I also loved getting to present our work at conferences. So we presented first at the Northeast Regional Honors Conference in Pittsburgh last year. And that was our first time really showing the research to everybody. And now we have so much more that we're going to present this year at the National Conference in Kansas City. So we also have our website to show for that.
And these are all exciting things because then we can expand Baltimore's history like past just the local area.
Great. Now, any last words, both of you? You can start.
I'm so excited for any future work we have. There's still a lot to uncover here. For example, we know of a colored women's exchange down the street, so we would love to see how the different intersections of class and race played into the exchange, and so we can get a full history of what Baltimore was and this landmark within it.
Yeah, we love working on the project, and now Anna and I are super close friends because of it. And I'm excited also to meet more people. I feel like people are always coming forward with their memories of the exchange, so I think that'll keep happening with the website being up now.
more great stuff to come.
Yeah.
So now, just tell me both of your names, say your names, and any contact you want to put out there for them to reach you.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Anna Chowdhury. My personal Gmail is chowdhuryanna49@gmail.com.
I'm Eliza Davis, and my personal email is emd2703@yahoo.com. What should we put our school?
We're going to be graduating.
Yeah. Well, we can do it for now.
We can also, if you go to the Notre Dame of Maryland website, you can see all our emails in there.
Okay, well, thank you both for
Thank
your
you.
all hard work you do.
Welcome back. We're here with Diana M. Bailey, and she is the executive director of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. Can you please tell us about your current project? We're all here, we're also impressed.
Oh, great. Well, we have a number of projects we've been working on for over the years that tell, adding her story to history to tell our story. So fortunately, a couple of years ago, we wrote a grant application to the National Heritage Area, which the Baltimore area is a part of, and we were awarded this research grant. And Dr. Amy Rosenkrantz, who's a member of our board, was the coordinator of that project, and then again brought in some interns. So what we found and the Women's Industrial Exchange, and you heard more from Amy about that, but it's just one of the, once you get started looking at women's history, you're sort of like peeling the onion, and you find this and then you find that, and there's just so many rich, important stories that can be told about women, and diverse women, that we didn't know. And so we're able to unearth a lot of those stories. And again, it's talking about the women in entrepreneurship, women in culinary, as well as at that time they were doing a lot of hand trades. But it looks at women in non-traditional careers, which we see in so many areas of the women's history that we do. We also promote women in STEM, science, technology, and math. And we have a number of our exhibits are related to the suffrage movement, the valiant women who love the vote. And we have a number of exhibits for that that are portable. We've taken them on the road many times. But I think one of the most important legacy pieces that we had is over the last few years, we partnered with the Pomeroy Foundation, and we brokered basically 10 suffrage markers across the state of Maryland. So that will go on for perpetuity, which we're so excited about. So we have a lot to celebrate in terms of women's history, but the project with Women's Industrial Exchange was just one of many. So we're always looking for resources and funds so we can continue our women's history research.
Well, that's very exciting. Tell me where some of your markers are.
Sure. We have a suffrage marker on our building here, and that's for Edith Houghton Hooker, who was, ironically, her office originally of the Just Government League was on the corner of Pleasant and Charles Street, and then she moved up to 817 Charles Street. So again, who knew that was going to be right in our neighborhood?
Truly, just a few blocks up.
That's right, that's right. We also have a marker in a cemetery in Frederick, and it's for the Trail Sisters, and they were doing a lot of work in the community, but also the suffrage work. And Julia Rule, who was from Garrett County at Mountain Lake Park, she did a lot of work in Western Maryland. Like, who knew?
Right.
And
I have not even heard of her, so that's very cool.
Yes. And then we have Carolyn Howell Miller, and she's in Sandy Spring. Again, their marker, and she was a Quaker. So again, we're seeing, women across the state. We have Augusta Chiselle and Margaret Gregory Hawkins in West Baltimore, in the Druid Hill area. And they were from the African American community, and they did a lot of work with African Americans, educating them after they got the right to vote,
Right.
and so they would be an educated consumer and a talented voter. So those were just some of the ones that we had.
That's very, very cool, very exciting. I'll have to check those out.
Yes,
Next time I'm in
our
Frederick.
website. On our
You
website.
said the women?
Yeah, the valiant Maryland women and the right to vote.
Excellent.
And there's a button on their website for that as well.
Well, there have been a lot of great women from Maryland, that's for sure. And what is your next project, or any special event you want to share with us?
Sure. Well, every 2 months we have a new artist in the window, a new exhibit, and so related to that exhibit, we always have a reception. So our next one, Melinda Mazel does abstract expressionism. She's an African-American woman who didn't take up art until after she retired from her day job. And so it's a whole new career for her. She's really very talented. So her reception is September 22nd here at the center. And we have a small fundraiser at the Lord Baltimore Hotel on September the 12th on the rooftop.
Oh,
So
wow.
come up and have a glass of wine and
Oh,
something.
definitely we'll be there for sure. It sounds
Right.
wonderful.
And the cool thing is that in partnership with the Lord Baltimore Hotel, 20% of the proceeds come directly to us as a fundraiser.
That's
So we're really excited about that.
outstanding. September 12th, right?
Correct.
And what time is it?
5 to 7?
5 to 7. Well, I know I'll be there.
Oh, good.
That's one of my favorite places in Baltimore. I love that hotel.
Oh, yes, it's wonderful.
So much of Baltimore history, just like what you shared with us today. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
again for joining us today, Diana.
Yeah, thanks for
It's
having
been
me.
a pleasure.